Dames en heren, goedemiddag allemaal, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome, good afternoon. It's great to see you all from so different disciplines, corners of the worlds, I could say. Artists and scholars, geleerden en kunstenaars, people representing the universities but also the conservatories, teachers, students, researchers, colleagues, friends. A real warm welcome to all of you. On behalf of the Orpheus Institute, with one word for the honorable guest, the mayor of the city. Welkom, burgemeester van Ghent, van deze wellevende stad. Fijn om u allemaal te zien. Voor dit feestje, this is a celebration party. We are celebrating the 10th anniversary of docARTES, a special program in which excellent performing musical artists can do research and obtain their PhD degree, which means 10 years of creative thinking in music, 10 years of artistic research in the context of university. What a program. My name is Lex Bolmeijer. I'm going to host this meeting, which it really is. I'm working as a presenter for the Dutch classical radio channel Radio 4. I'm doing several programs, also working as a journalist for The Correspondent, which is a new newspaper, only in digital form. And for me the task is to find the right words to bridge the gap between, on the one side, creativity and craftsmanship, on the other side, the formal criteria of science. Searching for the language that we all speak, the lingua franca, so to speak. Talking about this, let's start with the real lingua franca that you all know, music. We're going to listen to a piece of music played by Adelia Yip. She is from Hong Kong, which is a little bit more precise than to say that she's from China. She's going to play the marimba, and she's going to take us to West Africa. Adelia Yip. Thank you very much, Adelia, taking us straight into West Africa. Is that what your research is about? Field work in Africa?
Yes, in the beginning.
I'll take it.
So
easier for you.
Yeah, I went 2 times.
Yeah.
So after reading a lot of literature and learning with teachers in Belgium or in France, and so I find it's a need that I go to Africa to see how it is actually about, what is the culture there and how do they think about music. And I think that the only way is to go there, to immerse myself in there.
Yeah.
And so
where did you go exactly?
First time I went to Mali, and second time I went to Burkina Faso, so I break it into 2 times.
Yeah. And what do you do then? You go to perform with musicians, or are you going to talk with them? How did it?
So I take lessons with them. I took lessons with them, and so basically it's in a format of a workshop. So I went there with a group of other European musicians or amateur players even. And so when we were there, we just take lessons every day, and afterwards we have the chance to play with the African musicians also.
Okay.
In that way.
So then you come back, enriched with all those techniques, all the knowledge, and is that what you wanted to do then? Incorporate that experience into your music making?
Yes, first of all it's the experience, and I think also more important is also the technique, because for example now this music, actually I'm also developing myself to get this technique. As they call it, two-way coordination is a way of coordinating the left and right hand, which mainly we don't do it on marimba. No. So there is also jazz marimba or popular genre.
Can you show an example of that?
Okay.
Now that you're here, make it a little bit more concrete.
So what I try to do in a performance is that I have a pattern with my left hand that is repeating. And then my right hand I will superimpose the melody, or even I try to improvise. So that needs us to really know the counterpoint or the coordination between these 2 parts to make it happen.
Wow. So in fact, you're learning to improvise also, which is completely new for you as a musician.
Because I'm trained as a classical musician, so it's actually new. But of course there are a lot of routines or normal ways that they do it, so I just rather listen and try to copy what they do. So for me it's in between improvisation or just a new knowledge.
And now, the last thing, Adelia, you're working on that also here in Holland, no, in Antwerp, right?
Yeah, in Antwerp, and Royal Conservatoire.
What are you doing there?
I studied marimba there. In the beginning, I have my master's degree, and then now I'm just doing research. And also recently we have a project which is to play stiff right drumming, because it's also from the inspiration I have in Africa, because the important thing is that we have to learn the music by only listening. And for a lot of classical musicians, this is a new experience. Maybe for popular musicians, it's something they got used to, but for us, it's something new. Of course, stiff right drumming is written, but I would try to use no score to rehearse with the students. And until now, I think so. The performance will be in 3 weeks, so the rehearsal goes very fine. So it proved actually this oral transmission method, it works, but we just need a good strategy or method to make students learn the patterns, and we think it helps a lot in the collaboration way. And also students, they now start to have more creative thinking idea to put it into their music playing. So I think it's interesting. Very interesting.
Thank you very much, Adelia here. Ik moet deze een klein beetje opschuiven om wat plaats te maken voor het vervolg. Maar ik heb nog nooit verhuizen van Marimba gespeeld. Hoe werkt dat precies? Ja, denk je wel. Dit is natuurlijk een prachtig voorbeeld van wat het oplevert, dat onderzoek dat hier plaatsvindt in het Orpheus Instituut. Onder de noemer van docARTES, inspiratie, nieuwe technieken, maar zelfs een andere mentaliteit. Het leren improviseren. Vanuit West-Afrika werken met een orale traditie, dus zonder partituren voor je neus. En dat brengt ze nu in praktijk in Antwerpen en ze doet daar onderzoek naar. Wat een prachtig voorbeeld. En dat is er nog maar één van vele. Dus met veel reden vieren wij dit feestje van 10 jaar. En als er iemand is om te feliciteren, dan is het natuurlijk wel de directeur van het Orpheus Instituut. Dames en heren, voor een echt woord van welkom, voor een real proper word of welcome is hier de proud spider in the web, Peter de Jans.
Geachte dames en heren, geachte genodigden, waarde collega's, dear colleagues and friends from far and nearby, from the United States, Canada, Australia, Norway, UK, Italy, France, beste doctores en promovendi. Vandaag is het een heugelijke dag. Eigenlijk is het al 10 jaar een heugelijke tijd. Maar vandaag mogen we dat wat feestelijk belichten. docARTES bestaat 10 jaar. De eerste doctoraatstudenten begonnen aan het curriculum in januari 2004. Waar de eerste lichting, een 5-tal Vlaamse en Nederlandse promovendi, voorstelde, groeide deze kleine schare in de loop der jaren uit tot een ware cohorte, met op dit moment een 40-tal promovendi, komende uit alle windrichtingen en uit alle continenten. 2009 bracht ons het eerste afgewerkte doctoraat. De Universiteit van Leiden verleende toen de dokterstitel aan Luc Vaas, de huidige bezielende coördinator van het programma. Sindsdien heeft de klok niet stilgestaan. 15 doctoraten werden verleend aan muzici die het docARTES-programma aflegden. Binnen enkele weken, nog voor het jaareinde, zullen er daar met een aan de zekerheid grenzende waarschijnlijkheid nog 6 doctores bijkomen, wat het totaal op 21 brengt. Men ziet dat de volgehouden inspanning van de docARTES partnerinstituten alsmaar meer vruchten begint af te werpen. Dear colleagues, at an occasion as today there are reasons to be delighted, to be proud and to be excited. Delighted because of a very effective and successful collaboration between 5 partners. A collaboration that we do not take as a given. The partners being The Hague Royal Conservatoire and Leiden University, Amsterdam Conservatorium, Antwerp Royal Conservatoire and Antwerp University, Lemmens Instituut Lucca School of Arts and the Leuven University, and Orpheus Institute, where the program is run. docARTES is seen by others as an international inter-university doctorate program and an example of good practice. Such a long-standing collaboration leads between the partners to mutual understanding of similarities as well as differences. Bringing together 5 different institutional cultures and perspectives guarantees a valuable wealth. It also requires, however, a considerable amount of courage. Partners do understand that in the docARTES alliance, a full autonomy is partly given up in order to attain the richness of a partnership. To give a clear example, in the docARTES entrance examinations, we have representatives of all institutions who come to decisions in consensus, which means that even the candidates of your own institution are accepted on the basis of this consensus with your colleagues. There are many reasons also to be proud. Proud of attracting so many interesting artistic researchers. Luc will tell you more about the unique character of the program, but important also is to highlight how this program is being treasured by so many students. An appreciation which is also reflected in the growing numbers of applicants. For the moment, we have 40 to 50 applicants yearly. Also proud of the impact that doctores create in their own fields. Their own musical practices are fundamentally changed through their doctoral research work. Their artistic practice has not only been the source domain from where they extracted and formulated questions and challenges, but the results of their research trajectory flow back into that same artistic practice. We see how their musical practices are influenced and transformed. There's also a reason to be excited. Looking into the future, we recognize there is still a long trajectory to go. Great and inspiring work is still to be done through our docARTES in partnership. The reason why we are so closely collaborating is because we share the same ambition: to create a thriving research environment for musicians, a research environment that fits our discipline, which is music making, a research environment that inspires and challenges our today's musical practice and our higher music education, a research environment that functions as a motor for the development in the arts. That ambition serves as a compass. Rather than marking out the path and trying to create a map, docARTES will continue focusing on that compass. I would like to thank the docARTES team, Heike and Jonas, for their impeccable support, Luc Vaas for his inspiring leadership as docARTES coordinator, Frans de Ruiter for his being my brother in crime from the very first hour onwards, and all the docARTES colleagues and representatives of the different partner institutions for these 10 fantastic and inspiring years. A long list, out of which I would like to mention only a few: Michiel Schuijer, Henk Bordorf, Pascal de Grote, Mark Erkes, and Frans de Ruiter, and so many enthusiastic supporters at the universities of Leiden, Leuven, and Antwerp. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much. There's real reason to be proud, as you can hear. Artists, performing artists, musicians doing scientific research that is posing some questions about the relationship between the arts and the university, the academic world. And let's have a little word on that topic with one of the partners. In this case, Wim van den Doel. He's Dean of the Faculty of Humanities at Leiden University, one of the partners in crime. And he is a historian himself, and part of that Faculty of Humanities is the part of the arts. So we're coming close. Please welcome Wim van den Doel, who just arrived. Timing is very good. Thank you very much. Welcome, Wim van den Doel. The alma mater, university. Was it very natural to embrace the world of those crazy artists?
Well, it took 430 years before we started, so it took some time before we realized that very nearby in The Hague, the Royal Conservatory and the School of Fine Arts were there with excellent students who were the top of their trade, and I think Frans de Ruiter, together with some other people from Leiden, also the former rector Hagenaar, realized that both institutions had a lot in common. They both wanted to give students the best education, so they are excellence focused, and so you could also cooperate in the artistic research part. But it took some time before we reached that point.
But isn't it? I mean, do you accept, as a member of this academic world, the differences in the artistic research that is founded here?
Yes, I think we do realize it is different, but it's also similar in many ways. I do remember that some years ago we actually went to this institution as deans of the various faculties at Leiden to see what's happening here, and we were quite impressed by the Orpheus Institute and by the PhD candidates actually which were presented to us, and which we could ask them what we want.
Why were you so impressed?
Impressed by their passion, but also by the way they are really they are seeking knowledge, but in their own way. However, if you look at it from a university perspective, there are parts in the university actually which work in a way similar. If you look at engineering or people who are architects, they are trained at the university, but they also make one building or one example of what they can do. So this is not that unsimilar what's happening in artistic research.
There is some debate going on at the universities, and we all know the bad examples also, where subjectivity and objectivity mingle in a way that you're not very pleased. So artists we know for being very subjective, and perhaps they are allowed to be subjective in their research.
Yes, but I'm a historian, and I can't claim I'm fully objective when I'm writing a historian. I mean, if you write a book on history of X or Y, I mean, take two historians and you will end up with two different monographs. So full objectivity isn't there either, I think. I mean, the difference is that the artist himself or herself is actually, it's his or her own laboratory, which is unique. Of course, cannot be. You can go to the same archives as historians, and it's the same paper, same archives. But so that's my laboratory. So there are differences, but it's not that black and white. I think.
And what you share, is passion, as you say. Might I call it curiosity? Nieuwsgierigheid as a driving force?
It's curiosity-driven research. That's the buzzword in all kinds of policy papers, of course. Curiosity-driven research, and that's what researchers are doing and what artists are doing. I think that's exactly the same level.
And how do you cope with something like secrecy? I mean, stumbling on not knowing things, or perhaps even wanting to keep things secrets. Artists are good in that. Do you allow that at university?
Yes, because if you go to whatever place in the world to record a very strange language, you keep it for yourself for a long time because you want to publish on it for a long time. And you don't want to share it. I mean, I don't know if that's good, but it happens in the same way. Yeah.
It's part of the battle.
It's a part of the battle, yes.
So you're a happy man as a representative of the university to meet this world, actually.
Yes, I mean it was Luc Vaas who was the first, very first PhD defended at Leiden University. I remember the rector of Nivkes himself was presiding over this ceremony, showing the importance Leiden University gives to these kind of PhD candidates. There was one disappointment in a way, because we took enormous effort to bring in a big piano in the old academy building, which is not easy because it was not built as a and of course we tried to ask questions so that the candidate would go behind the piano and give an answer that way, but it was a very academic session actually. Very good answers to perhaps not so very good questions, but so it was a PhD defense. That's the only disappointment I think in the entire career of this program.
Wim van der Doel, thank you very much. I hope you don't have to run away.
No.
Please stay.
Yes.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Yes. Now, Luc Vaas. De first one to graduate hier, de eerste die zijn doctoraalsbul in ontvangst mocht nemen na dat extensieve onderzoek about extended piano techniques, isn't it?
Yes.
Do you remember, how do you recall this period of research, to being the first one, being a pioneer somehow?
Oh, it could have been somebody else. it's very easy to recall because there's a dissertation there, so I just have to open the book and it'll all come back to me. I hope I'm not a disappointment again.
But did you enjoy it?
Oh yes, it was a lot of fun. Not only because it's a very ritualized experience. You've got 15 minutes or 20 minutes, and then somebody comes in and rings a kind of a bell, and that's it. So there's not really anything to be afraid of. And it was, for a performer, of course, it's just another occasion to be on the stage.
Let me ask you perhaps the hamvraag, as we call it, the basic question. Why should excellent artists go for their PhD?
Well, as far as I was concerned, it came very natural. I was brought up by teachers that installed in me a sense of critical assessment of what I was doing, and the necessity of being able to explain why you do things, to look at the context in which you move around. So to me it became very natural. From within the program, when I look at students that come here, I think it's an addition to their upbringing musically. You have to realize that it's only recent that in conservatoires artistic research is being embedded in the master program. So before that, we had many students that just didn't know what this was about. So this was kind of not a shot in the dark, but a jump into a pool that I didn't know was there. But I think for each one of them, it proved to be an experience that not only enriched their practice, but formed them as musicians.
The minds, I mean, the way how you cope with problems or do research, I mean, even artistic questions, asking the right questions.
I think that's the key, yes, to even to teach students on how you pose the right question. Not just a question of has this been posed before, but what's the difference with how other people would pose the question, and what method do you then couple to that question?
Now, you have been there from the beginning. Now you're coordinator of the docARTES program, so you have been there for the full 10 years that we are celebrating today. Is this a program at an institution that is also driven by curiosity, by looking for new ways? In other words, how did you see it develop itself?
It certainly is an institute that drives on curiosity. Just look at the way this is put together, the fact that we had drawings made in every aspect of Orpheus. It's also looking for something new. It can then happen that you suffer from the law of, I don't know how one calls that in English, when it kind of backfires. You're so advanced that you have to get all the other ones with you.
In boomerang effect.
Yes. Well, there's still another term, but
oh, yeah.
we saw that, of course, in the program. It's a joint effort of many institutions. And you begin with something that doesn't exist. Somebody had to invent a program. I didn't do this. It was many people. Henk Borgdorf, Peter de Jans, the people from Leiden, from all the conservatoires and the four universities, thinking of what are we going to present these first students that we let into the program. There are incidental changes, like the fact that at one point it was good to have somebody with the doctorate in artistic research be involved in the program. Before that, this was not possible. So you have to ask scholars, you have to ask artists, you have to present best practice examples to students from where. Now we have a big pool. There's so many doctors already that I can draw from to show people and to also discuss and debate. And but there are some larger lines that connect to curiosity, but also to development. We see different kinds of students come in. In the beginning, it was quite a lot of pianists and classical instruments and score-based research. Now we have many improvisers, people that are interested in music from different cultures.
So the Institute has built up a reputation, wider and wider spread.
Yes, more students apply. Sometimes more students get in. Students from countries where they have no artistic research yet, they seem to find us before they find computer programs. So I think that's not something we particularly grew, and we've been good at that from the beginning, attracting students. And then other developments that I'm thinking of is that it grew more and more hands-on. That has to do with you have to learn yourself what you offer to students. It became more and more focused on their project because we have people now, easier to work that out. Also the connection to the postdoc group in Orpheus, which exists for less than 10 years, but with which we can now form collaborations, so doctoral students are part of that group, and we can draw from that group to teach students. So there's.
It's not the end yet.
No.
Are you still there in 10 years?
Well, if I'm still here, then I will tell you what the developments have been in the next 10 years.
We'll meet in 10 years. Thank you very much, Orpheus. We gaan het afwisselen met muziek. Als de gemeenschappelijke taal, we will have some music again by Lucia D'Enrico, guitar player, doing her research right now here in Ghent. She's going to perform a piece, Madonna il poco dolce, by Nicola Vicentino. En zij doet onderzoek naar de shift tussen renaissance en barok. Maar ik weet niet of dat meteen duidelijk wordt uit de muziek, uit het spelen. Lucia, stage is yours. This is what we call extended, isn't it, as a technique. I love the spoon. Is it the right spoon?
It is definitely.
How do you know?
I have tried several, including forks and chopsticks.
So why is this the right one? How do you know?
I guess I'm satisfied with the outcome.
Okay, that's all.
Yes, basically.
Did you ask the composer?
No, he's dead. He's been dead for quite a long time, so.
So you can do what you like.
That's it.
No. Now bring me back from this performance of yours to the period in time that you are actually studying and researching the shift between Renaissance and Baroque. What's the connection?
That is what I'm trying to find out through my research. Actually, my research starts from an interest in a historical period, that is, as you said, this shift, the beginning of what we might call the Baroque period, even if this term is not so clear, so definitive in terms of history and so on. But there is a part that is the most important of my research, that is the relationship of this historical period with today, and with what it means to be a musician today, for me of course, and about musical production and musical practice now. So what I'm trying to do is to create or to investigate a relationship between me as a performer and this.
So actually you're looking for inspiration?
It's not just that, it is also part of it, but what I'm trying to do is to see, if I can, to understand what was going on then, and I'm trying to investigate a concept that I have devised to shed a light on that period, and that is the concept of empty center. In that I noticed that many parts of the thought of that period, and of course that thought was reflected in the arts and in music, can be seen as shaped by this idea of the loss of a center.
Okay.
And so, yes, this is the concept that I would like to bring into my contemporary performance, trying to see how it could work in those days.
Well, the empty center, that could easily be a description of the modern feeling, one could say.
Yes, I think so. Maybe I'm too close to nowadays to judge this period, but
you know what you feel.
Yes, I think there are some similarities between the present situation and what was going on in those days. It was a period of big crisis, and of global crisis, I would say. So there are some similarities.
What's new? Nothing changing.
We are new.
Exactly. Your research is new. Thank you very much. Lucia D'Arico. Thank you. Een prachtige titel ook voor haar onderzoek Shadows from the Empty Space. That's what the title of your dissertation will be. Beautiful. We gaan ons een beetje verplaatsen naar de wereld van de conservatoria. De eerste ronde hebben we het meer gehad over de universiteit misschien een beetje en dit instituut dat er natuurlijk tussen zit. Maar nu vragen we een aantal mensen even naar voren, achtereenvolgens uit de wereld van de conservatoria. Laten we beginnen met Mark Erkens. He's pianist, head of the music department of the Lemmens Institute. And that's part of the Lucas School of the Arts, connected to the University of Leuven. How complicated can it be? Mark, welcome.
Quite easy.
Is it easy?
Yes.
You are from the Conservatory
No,
of
I'm a
Leuven.
musician, and that means that complex situations are not that difficult for us.
You're doing it express. You're making.
No, it's not we who make. No, we tend to make things easier, but the surrounding world tends to make things complex. But we can manage.
What do you mean by the surrounding world? Do you mean me? Do you mean society?
Well, our government, to start with.
Oh yeah.
The academic world.
They have always been doing it.
Yes.
Sorry, the academic world?
Universities, which we don't belong to yet. We say yet because we tend to make it possible that one day we will become university educational programs in music.
Why would that be your ambition?
It's a kind of being honest to musicians, to artists as a general. Once in the Middle Ages there was no difference between a scientist and an artist. We made that difference and we made it quite clear in the 18th century. Then there was a difference between plus and minus, between knowing and feeling, between science and arts. And since then we have been outcasts. We tend to thrive on emotions. And some artists have the tendency to prove, or try to prove, that everything is inspiration, everything is feeling, everything is a muse, and we don't have to think. It's said that Mozart was composing music while he was playing pool, snooker. He didn't play pool too well, but he was a great composer on the other hand. But people didn't see him compose. And when he was sitting at the table having a chat with some of his friends, then he was making notes on paper. The things he had already composed were then written down on paper. But when they saw him writing, they thought, well, Mozart isn't thinking at all. There is something else that's going on. Is it really man who is doing this, or is it some kind of God who is inspiring him? Because there was no science, or so they thought, involved. And that people think that musicians are not really thinkers, that's one of the great misunderstandings. And some scientists still think that we don't think. So that makes it a little bit harsh. We have now the impression that the great people at universities know that artists are great beings, but not all of them. So we have, well, we have still the struggle to go on.
But there's an ambition to really restore the historical development. And go back to the...
No, we're not going back.
Yes,
no,
you are.
Going forward. Now, we also have to fight some of our fellow musicians too. I'm a little bit ashamed to say this. Being a scientist means that you have to do research to go on. Being an artist doesn't necessarily mean that you have to do research and prove that you're doing research to go on. You can be a great artist and still give the impression that you're not really a thinker at all. It's just a product that counts. When you are a great composer, people can see that because you have your compositions. If you are a great performer, you just have to perform very well. And nobody is asking you, where is your research that makes you a great performer? While on the other hand, scientists have to prove, because they have to have a report that can be read by peers internationally, and that proves that you are a great scientist. And that's the big difference in our situation. But on the other hand, research makes of a musician a better musician. It's still something that we have to prove, that we have to make clear. Things like docARTES are really just a light in the darkness, still followed by more and more people, because it's very convincing what's happening here. But it's not accepted by all the musicians. Some still say, and that's the one who are giving lessons to other young students, you don't have to lose your time with research. You just practice a little bit more. That will be better for you.
So there's a battle to win.
Yes.
But
we are eager to go on, because we have fellow competitors with us. Yeah. People like Peter de Jans and Frans de Reuter, well, they show the way.
Okay, great. You have, we're going to talk about the magazine that is going to present to you in a minute, during this meeting. And you wrote to me a beautiful letter about what you want, and one of the phrases I did not understand, and I can cope with that, with not understanding, I like that. Hoe musiceren we Orpheus tot op het podium? Can you translate that for you in the first place?
How are we going to give Orpheus? Because Orpheus and docARTES, they give music another place. How can we show that on stage?
Okay.
That's what I meant.
And
how can we indicate that research make better musicians, and that you can see, well, this is one of the musicians that admitted that he was thinking, that he has been thinking to give this kind of result on stage.
Orpheus was one of those examples combining.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. And he came far. Thank you very much. Good luck. Maar het is natuurlijk helemaal afgelopen, dat gevecht, want ze zijn er nog niet daar als volwaardig lid van de Katholieke Universiteit van Leuven. Dus hoe doe je dat nou precies, samenwerken? Misschien is dat een goed onderwerp voor de volgende gast, Pascal de Grote, directeur van Artesis Plantijn Hogeschool in Antwerpen, dus including de Conservatory in Antwerpen, former dancer, met name bestuurder.
Trying to be.
Trying to be? What do you mean by trying to be? Yeah, of course. Of course. I know that. How to collaborate? How to convince everybody to join? And apart from being here and getting inspired, I mean, we're talking about institutions, slow, horrible institutions that don't want to know how beautiful things are happening.
Well, that can be difficult, but in this case, I think it was a piece of cake, because we already had Orpheus Institute, where the 4 Flemish conservatoires had joined forces, and where we had Peter as center director. You said it so nicely, the spider in the web. So when Peter, who had been talking with his partners in crime, the one who's sitting behind there, he came to us, and it was quite obvious that we would join forces again in this area. This was just at the moment where we were preparing the implementation of the Bologna Declaration. And one of the tasks that we had was to implement research in our educational programs, to create a nexus, education, research, and vice versa, of course.
We want the Bologna Declaration. Does everybody know what it is?
I do suppose so.
I don't.
This was a declaration signed by the ministers to create a uniform European higher education area. Huh?
Thank you.
This is in one sentence. So at this moment, Peter came with a proposal to join forces in docARTES. So this was, you know, like something that came from heaven, as we also at the same moment had the opportunity to create a doctoral program with the university in which we were together in the association. So for us, the University of Antwerp. So this was just what we needed, a center of excellence where all the forces were joined that had to do with artistic research in music. And I think from then on, it was just the right way, to find the right way to develop this artistic research in music, to evaluate it, to define it more and more, to enhance it. And that's what we have been doing. Yeah. And so I'm talking about the artistic research in music in general, but of course, having people coming in this program, how do you say this, als doctoraat krijgen?
PhD, when they get a PhD.
Getting their PhD, going back to the institutions with the new knowledge, the new expertise. Yes, of course, this was an enormous catalyst in you know, not only enhancing the research, but helping us to develop it in our own institutions.
So it all starts with those people that you mentioned, a few names already, who can make a difference. So if you want to collaborate, you have to look for those people in other institutions. In other words, to create what might be called a coalition of the willing. Is that a good word?
Yeah, that's a good word.
You're talking about the battle.
Yeah, no, I always think collaboration is the most beautiful thing to work in, because you bring together a lot of people, of course, preferably the willing, with their own expertise. You join forces. You don't have, I will use a Dutch expression, je moet het warm water niet zelf uitvinden. Everybody comes with his or her own expertise. You put everything together. You talk about it. Out of this conversation comes evaluation and follows enhancement. So it's like a wheel that gets rolling and that continues. But of course, you're right. You need to find the right partners.
And why didn't Mark succeed yet? It seems so easy when you talk about this. He has still a long way to go.
No, Mark is succeeding as well. He's only a little more naughty than I am, that's all.
Okay, good, thank you. But I would like to, if I was a member of another institution, I would like to collaborate with you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Pascal. Yes.
Can I say one more thing?
Of course.
I
yes.
really want to say something. Can I take the mic?
Okay.
That's easier.
Can you go away?
No, you don't have to go away. But I really want to say this. I was so glad that you said that Peter is the spider in the web, because he already was the spider in the web of Orpheus. He continued to be, especially in Flanders, the spider of the web for docARTES. He also became a spider in the web in a European network. It was he who took the initiative to bring the willing together of different countries. He created a center of research here, etc., etc. So I really want to say, Peter, we couldn't have done this without you. And I really would want everybody to join in a marvelous applause for Peter de Ant.
Bravo.
I'm really sorry, but I have to say this in Dutch. Ik was enkele weken geleden een artikel aan het lezen in de Knak. Vic Swerts, een interview met toch wel beroemd businessman Vic Swerts. En ik kwam daaruit op een uitspraak van hem. Hij zei, mijn leidmotief bestaat eigenlijk uit de 5 D's. En die zijn dromen, denken, durven, doen en doorzetten. En ik kon maar aan 1 persoon denken. Ik dacht aan Peter, maar ik voegde er nog 2 D's bij. Doorzetten en doorzetten. Dank u, Peter.
Dank u wel. Pascal. Met de D van de Jans. Zijn ze in Amsterdam en Den Haag aan die conservatorium net zo inspirerend? Let's ask Michiel Schuijer. Ja, Michiel, kom naar voren. He's member of the advisory board of docARTES. Welcome, Michiel, head of the Department of Composition, Conducting and Music Theory at the Conservatory of Amsterdam. And you haven't been there from the beginning.
That's right.
You only came in late. You're always late?
Yes.
Yes, good.
I need something to comment on.
Yes.
So, I'm not, let's say, the inventor here,
No.
but a commentator.
Yeah.
And, well, that's, this was an invitation that appealed to me.
Good, very good. I mean, what is your experience? I mean, you are somebody watching, for instance, new people coming in,
Yes.
and having to judge. So, who are the right students, researchers? So, what kind of musicians do we need in this institution?
Musicians who can act as ambassadors of their discipline, both in their playing, but also, I think, via the spoken word and the written word. So people who can really show us what they are working on, why that matters, and convince us with their results.
Isn't that asking a bit too much?
Yes, but apparently there are people who are able to do that, and I think they are very important. It is indeed, you could say, a challenge, and it is also something that perhaps requires very special people. But okay, I mean, the musical landscape is very rich. You have high mountains, you have smaller hills, they're all contributing in their ways, but I think this is, it is possible. I think that the whole history of docARTES has shown us that people can indeed make their way to the PhD and the positions that in which they can thrive.
But are we talking here about musicians, artists who are very rare, or is it something that you believe that should spread wider and wider over all the students at the conservatories, for instance, and that it's something that, as Mark already plead for, should be for everybody the case?
Yeah, I think you're right. It is, as I said, it is for special people, but indeed there should be more of them. And I think we need these people also to set an example and to open doors for others, give ideas, provide ideas that others can develop further. So ultimately, yes, I think this should become a more normal part of musical life. Still, I think we should not make the impression that you can only be successful in this way. There are many ways in which you can become successful in musical life, and the others are actually as important. But this was something that I think we missed in let's say, part of the landscape that was not there. It's very good that this has now, let's say, been developed.
You see it also as building up knowledge. Is that also what is happening? It's starting to happen.
Certainly, although let's say knowledge in various forms, of course, knowledge, and I would certainly add experience also. Evolution, maybe, an evolution of let's say also the musical human being. So I see that very, very broadly. People are developing things. They're, let's say, as I said, opening doors, creating new worlds, new possibilities, but also enable others to work on that, to appreciate that, to discuss it. I think that all these different uses of that work should be should be celebrated.
That's what we are doing. Somehow, I've been asking questions at musicians for part of half of my life, and you know that when you have a good conversation, you always get to the moment when they start saying, "Yeah, that's something I can't put into words." And I like that idea, because that's why they are musicians, because there's something that you can't articulate. And here, we're working on the articulation. So what about this idea of something unable to put into words?
It's complementary. So, yes, I agree with you, that is very important, and in fact the music also serves as an argument. So it's not only the dissertation, it's not only the discussion or the viva voce or what have you. It is certainly also the music that convinces us of the progress that has been made.
Exactly.
Still, I think it's important for musicians to have a position in society where they can also, let's say, represent their art as speakers.
So bridge the gap between and there has been suddenly a wider gap between the arts and society.
Yeah, exactly, and because it's creating a sense of also commitment in other people. And in fact, you need to have a whole arsenal of weapons to make that happen.
That's the main metaphor today. I'm trying to talk about a celebration, you're all talking about a battle.
We are very militant people here.
Yeah. Good, and I like you, militant people. Thank you very much. Goodbye. Talking about the difference between words and notes, music. We're going to listen to music again. In this case, by Arne de Vos, who has been doing research on compositions that you can't perform and still are being performed. He's going to give an example, if I'm not mistaken here. On his cello, he made a wonderful recording with Muziekfabriek, with the music of Xenakis. And this is a piece by Xenakis called Kotos. Yes. Do you want to say something before you play, Arne? To say something about the mystery of this music?
Yes, well, the reason. Sorry.
There's a hole.
There is a hole.
Is that part of the performance?
Could be. Yeah. I could make performance.
You could also disappear.
Yes. Well, the reason why I chose this piece is because it's one of the big classics of Ioannis Xenakis. And he is a historical example in the 20th century of a composer, architect, who was absolutely dealing with this whole notion of science and how scientific research can contribute to a complete new notion of making music or new models for composition. And so he's very known of using mathematics and also concepts of architecture to give new shape to forms and to ways of playing or approaching instrumentalism or orchestra music. So, but that's quite a difficult topic, of course, to explain. But it's a beautiful example, historical example, who is also one of the composers who has opened a lot of imagination to the younger generation to think out of the classical box, let's say.
What does Kotos mean?
Well, Kotos, Xenakis is also known for composing a lot of abstract music, but that particular music piece is not so abstract. It's it's almost a programmatic piece of music. It's a bit a funny piece, and speaking about battles, it's a battle again.
I knew it.
Yes. Some people think it's against the instrument, but it's not. It's to bring out the most deep animal sounds of the belly of the instrument you can imagine. And it's referring to a myth. Kotos is a huge monster, so it's opening the imagination. It's a huge monster with, how is it again? 50 heads and 100 arms, which has to be defeated in the creation of the world. So it's a battlefield of the Titans against Zeus for the creation of order. And so you hear the screaming monsters and fluting sounds and all these kind of funny things.
Well, you go ahead. Arne de Vos.
One more thing. Yeah. I'm not going to play the whole piece because of lack of time. It's a long piece, so I play just a few examples.
Okay.
Was that the light?
You know. This piece was written for a competition?
Yes.
Oh, poor candidates.
Yes, they didn't play it.
They didn't?
It was cancelled.
Why?
Well, because the concept of this kind of notation and virtuosity has never been practiced before, so and there was a very short amount of time, so some tried, but in fact it was not taken into account for the final competition.
You make it sound so easy.
Sometimes.
You I mean, you're stumbling on the category of the impossible, isn't it? Before
yes.
you play. That's what you like. You like that.
No.
You do?
10 years ago, I was saying these kind of theories of unplayability. Yeah. And so they are chasing me now all the time. People think, oh, you're playing this unplayable music, but actually it's not the case. It's of course a kind of metaphor for the confrontation we have between our previous concepts of playing and of notation also. Due to improvisation and other techniques, yeah, things changed, and so yeah, if you look at the standpoint from exactness, one could say maybe this is sometimes on the limits of playability. But it's not about that.
No, I understand. I'm only provoking you. Yeah. I think it's more, and there's a combination with the academic world. It's going into the unknown, I suppose. That's what it's more about. Exploring what we don't know yet.
Yeah. Yes, going to the borders and to operate on the limits of the borders, and on the limits of also exploring, yeah, the potential of failure, for example. Especially in experiments, you have to take risks, and it's in taking these risks that you also can push the borders to new limits. Some one could say.
I spoke to Trudy de Hu, who is a philosopher of science, who said scientists should learn how to doubt again, and they could learn it from artists, I suppose.
Yes, somewhere there's a connection.
One more last thing. Your PhD research is already behind you for a few years. How do you reflect on that? I mean, was it a period of just a period of time in your life, or has it influenced you until today, and is it going to do so?
It influenced.
Be honest.
Yes. I don't know now. But it influenced me, or it was interesting to do it at that time. But I think for me, in some way, it was like collecting many thoughts of processes which I discovered during the research period, let's say about 6-7 years. And so then finally it's crystallized itself in the result in the PhD, but it's lying somewhere behind me. I feel it. It's 2 years from now, and I feel it's really, when I look at it, something like, oh, yeah, well, there's a new world now. I'm working on a new project, which is, let's say, somewhere something like goodbye to 20th century, searching for new connections with the world today.
You keep going into the unknown.
We try.
Thank you very much. I'm the first. Thank you. Before I announce the last contribution for the academic world, I would like to point out that, to stress the fact that this is a celebration, the 10th anniversary of docARTES. There is a magazine created, docARTES, 10 years of creative thinking in music, about the doctoral program in musical arts. It's a very nice magazine, and you're going to get it, but only afterwards, only when you leave. So don't worry, there will be many copies of them, and you can look at it when we are going to the reception, have a little chat and drink. There will be copies of it, but you can get it when you leave the building, and then show it to the outer world. Last contribution from the academic world, as I said, one of those men that has been named already a few times. He was there also from the very beginning. Very stimulating in bridging the gap again between the conservatory and the university, especially that of Leiden. He is dean at the Faculty of the Arts. Now there he has been director of the Conservatory of The Hague. Before that, even a harpsichordist and a musicologist. He once told me in an interview, and I never forget that phrase, in every piece of music there's a mirror. He was called brother in crime, with a stress on crime. He is Frans de Ruiter.
Meneer de burgemeester, dames en heren. Ik Ik heb wat glaasje water nodig, want ik begin toespraken tegenwoordig altijd met een bedreigende mededeling. Toen ik een jaar of 5 directeur was van het conservatorium en ik aan het begin van het jaar en aan het eind van het jaar toespraken hield, lag er na een paar jaar een briefje, niet te lang graag. En dan had ik 7 regels staan op een papiertje en die waren begroot op 45 minuten en dat werd altijd een uur. Om u dat te besparen heb ik voor vandaag wat opgeschreven, zodat het een overzichtelijke lengte heeft om u gerust te stellen. En natuurlijk gaan we ook over in het Engels. A kind of miracle has happened. In 2001 we started a travel to an utopian destination. Without a roadmap, also because there were no roads. We have taken the time to build the roads, what has been a very wise decision. There were many things we didn't know, and due to this fact we learned also a lot. Often in the years preceding and preparing docARTES, a couple of 2-3 years, and all the years of its existence, we were questioned, and we questioned ourselves about definitions. But even more important, why are we doing all of this? What does it bring, and to whom? And this why question still remains most urgent. Definitions we have, very nice for a symposium, and if you wish I can read a few, but then we will end up in 45 minutes. More important remains the question, why? As a musician myself, I have always been fascinated by the it. It has to do something with the mirror, happening in a performance, the it in a performance, both when listening to others and when I played myself. What happens when musicians and audiences alike have the feeling that something miraculous happens? That what is heard is a tribute to the work, or in the case of new composition, to the body of available repertoire. In other words, that the artistic product or action is necessary. In short, the necessity of music. Can we do research into what is needed to achieve the miracle in musical processes and outcomes? What do we musicians hear what we hear? Why do we hear that? And what do we musicians do with what we hear? Don't we, as musicians, react immediately, change our plans? And do we perhaps then profit from the body of knowledge we have acquired through doing research? Why do we compose and perform? And let's put aside to simply speak about skills, intuition, creativity, taste, inspiration. These elements are suis generibus, anyhow a conditio sine qua non for any researching artist. No, what artist researchers want to know is what's the core of composing and performing, the core of musicking. What is the work? What is the material? What kind of knowledge? Which knowledge do we have or do we want to discover? And therefore, we have to define the work. A very important question now in a ERC research project here in the building, and I have the permission to quote some words from Paulo de Assis, another D, de Assis, Pascal, to serve you. He writes in a recent publication about what Deleuze and Guattari are doing with the phenomenon of strata. If we get into the direction of a work, we have to do with 4 types of strata in the music materials to define the work or to approach the work. We have substrata, Paulo says, sketches, drafts, first editions, letters, writings by composers and performers, annotations, etc. We have parastrata, treatises, manuals, iconography, period instruments, descriptions of concerts, critics, archives, lists of personnel, payments, etc. We have epistrata, period editions throughout time, analyses, reflexive texts, theoretical expositions, recordings, transcriptions. All these elements are contributing to the definition of what the work is. We have to define the work and the component parts and elements. We have to take out materials, enter into experimentation and try to rework, to reuse, and to arrive at editing, at assemblage and reassembling. And after a while, in the docARTES program, we found perhaps the word that started to lead and guide us, and also will do in the future. In the end, we want to try to unravel processes and outcomes. The word unravel is core. As a personal experience, I remember, and I shared it with Walter van Houwen somewhere over there, the performance of a 5-part Douwland Pavaan, where we dislocated the 5 parts in an aleatoric order of events as a slow fugue. After that, playing the Pavaan as composed, we experienced that we had learned more about the piece through this dislocation and experimentation than in 10 hours of regular rehearsing. The piece changed and we had changed. And I'm sure that Arne de Vos, you just heard, confirms this when playing Fernihau after 3 months of Xenakis at Lacherman. And again, I think we heard Kottes at your entrance exam, Arne. It was today completely different from that moment, which has to do with your dealing with Fernihau and Lacherman. Through this experimentation, various aspects of research in and through musical practice emerge. And there are a number of words from the 238 meditations Arne put in his dissertation. Authenticity, intentions of the composer, notation, rehearsing, improvisation, perfection, failure, affect, deconstruction, impossibility, rhetorics, complexity, extension. Another important element here is the type of knowledge we are hoping to discover and to contribute to the already existing knowledge. We, working in the docARTES programs, both as students and as staff members and supervisors, and not unfamiliar with musicology, ethnomusicology, performance studies, and cultural musicology, we have discovered another core issue. With all respect for these disciplines, that we, in our concept of methodological pluralism, like to use, our questions are fundamentally different because they arise from within artistic processes. The same is valid for the answers and the solutions. After 10, even 12 years, with the preparation involved, 21 PhDs finished in music in December, many classes, seminars, lectures, symposia, academies, collegia, we know it is true. We are able to assemble knowledge which only can be acquired by our type of research, done by artists. And what is this famous tacit knowledge that always jumps up into the discourse? Is it that simple that we want the tacit to speak? Wasn't it one of the wonderful titles of the famous Orpheus research festivals and seminars? On large posters at the wall and outside. Do we know what we don't know? Question mark. My eye just dwindled upon a brand new piece, a small piece of text written so beautifully by Anna Scott, who defends her dissertation on December 11th in Leiden. In an additional alinea she wanted to add after the external expert panel had approved her dissertation. She says, knowing becomes doing, and doing engenders ever new knowing. End of citation. Often we say that the outcomes of research in and through musical practice are only partly discursive, so verbalizable, and the other part, half of it, 1/3 or even 2/3, only demonstrable in music. The same is true for the two senses that are so important in our discipline, ear and eye. Learned medical researchers, also in Leiden, and doctors tell us that the complete working of these organs is only partly verbalizable, and that the remainder is just the miracle that we can hear and see. And we should realize that in our discipline, music, our ears can read, whilst we can also hear through our eyes. I can never forget meeting Frans Bruggen, who died a couple of months ago, in his castello in the Chianti, studying in the lengthy summer's Beethoven symphonies in his study room in the tower of his castle. The question was, what do you do for 3 months in this tower upstairs? Of course, there were also 2 swimming pools and good wines, but what are you doing? And what was the answer? I look in the score, and again, week after week, you look, you discover, you find, you hear, and find again. And then you know what to do for the moment. And if we turn to another D, van Den Abele, who is defending his doctorate on the 15th of December in Leiden, from the last summary of his book of 500 pages, I quote what he has brought together. Examples from day-to-day artistic practice, accounts of relationships, descriptions of the neumes, considerations about how transmission takes place, thoughts about personal stories, listening histories and performance experiences, reports on how to tackle plain-chant challenges, pleas for the emancipation, lists of what we can learn, explorations of how the human voice can be used, observations of musicians' research, suggestions of how a plain-chant performer can relate to, and presentations of projects, some 15 things emanating from his research. docARTES was and is a learning process for all involved, institutions, staff and students alike. The institutions to jump over their own shadows, so to speak, to give up preconceived ideas and to sharpen their minds. The staff to learn from the students in a sometimes difficult balance between their own ideas and quite a few rigorous demands from our side, and the high quality standards we want to uphold in academia and our universities. And of course, the doctoral students, who are supposed to develop from high-level practitioners into independent artist researchers, with the ability and agility to position themselves on the international forum of their specialization. Supposed to construct layers of and in reflection, and to critically engage themselves with the interplay between their artistic processes, their outcomes and actions, and their research in and through that artistic practice. I'm convinced that for nearly all involved, and so far we finished 21 and some 40 are involved in docARTES, the candidates and the supervisors alike, it is a travel through purgatorio, sometimes at the edge of inferno. The more is the handing over of the blue tube with the sealed charter of bestowing the doctorate an emotional moment after 4, 5 or 10 years of diving between Scylla and Charybdis and trying to ignore the seducing chant of the sirens. In comparable situations abroad, one sees often that doctoral programs end up in so-called additive curricula, more methodology, more music history, theories of the art, philosophy. We did likewise in the beginning, but we changed, looking at results and listening to our students. More and more, the research projects of the students became central in the conceptualization of the taught program. Not impose theory on artistic research questions, but from within the artistic projects, liaise with theory and academic affairs. Not taught per se, but much more the interplay between students and staff, and students among themselves. Did we have results? Forgetting about numbers, I rather come back to content. When I receive feedback from our musician researchers, now holding the PhD title, I'm regularly assured by them that despite all the hardships, this was the best period of their lives, that they would not have liked to miss it, and that they have changed. This is then also the answer to the rather stupid question we often get. And with a PhD, are you a better artist? Do you have more commissions, more gigs, more invitations? Do you earn more money? Of course, the answer is no. The right answer is, I have changed. My artistic practice is different now. Ik wil graag de partners van docARTES, dat waren er enkele in het begin, en dat zijn er meer geworden gelukkig, hartelijk bedanken voor de ongelooflijk plezierige soms moeilijke, soms strijdende, maar altijd vruchtbare samenwerking met veel resultaat. Als afkomstig uit Nederland en mijn eigen instituut ben ik natuurlijk bijzonder dankbaar voor het Koninklijk Conservatorium en de steun die dat instituut blijft geven aan het programma. En de laatste jaren de faculteit Geesteswetenschappen, in het bijzonder decaan Wim van der Doel, heel blij dat hij hier is, die enorm steun verleent aan de mogelijkheden voor het verder ontwikkelen van het programma. Niet alleen voor de muziek, maar ook in de sfeer van de beeldende kunst. Ik wil ook graag bedanken degenen die financieel hebben bijgestaan om dit alles mogelijk te maken. Ik denk aan overheden, regeringen, provincies, gemeenten, fondsen, instituties en wat men zo allemaal maar kan bedenken. Wij zijn zeer dankbaar dat wij dit mooie werk ook financieel op een gezonde wijze kunnen voltooien en daarmee kunnen doorgaan. Er is ook veel dank uit te spreken aan het Orpheus Instituut. We zijn hier te gast, altijd plezierig. Ik bedank de staf en ook de staf van het begin, Kathleen en Heike en Jonas. En natuurlijk enorm, en het is al gebeurd door Pascal, maar ik kan het niet weer doen, mijn partner al sinds die tijd, waar we nog vaak grappen maken over onze eerste ontmoeting die zo schuchter was, maar die zo mooi beëindigd kon worden in een zogenaamde win-win situatie. En daar profiteren we er allemaal nog van. Peter, het is ongelooflijk fantastisch geweest en ik hoop dat we nog vele jaren kunnen blijven doen om met jou te mogen samenwerken en de studenten verder te brengen, want dat is tenslotte de enige reden waar we dat allemaal voor doen. Het is ook goed om te denken aan degenen die aan het begin betrokken waren geweest en sommigen zijn hier, anderen niet. Henk Bordorf. Ik denk ook in het bijzonder terug aan Luc Vaas, mijn eerste promovendus, die nu het programma leidt en ook een belangrijke mate heeft bijgedragen aan de verandering van het programma zoals ik dat juist beschreven heb. Ik bedank natuurlijk mijn echtgenote Manon, die dat allemaal heeft mogelijk gemaakt om al die tijd hieraan te kunnen besteden. In totaal zijn er nu in Leiden 70 mensen ingeschreven voor een promotietraject. Ik heb het even niet over Antwerpen en Leuven, waar ook behoorlijke aantallen bezig zijn, maar het is een enorme groep die we te bemeesteren hebben. En de vraag is natuurlijk waarom je dat allemaal doet en wat er zo belangrijk aan is. En dan moet ik toch altijd weer terugdenken aan een onderzoeksproject van mezelf. Op het moment dat je om 7:30 s'avonds achter het klavecimbal het eerste akkoord neerlegt van de Matthäuspassion en weet dat je na 3,5 uur ongeveer aan het eind bent. Dat is niet alleen vermoeiend, maar ook heel plezierig. En die hele reis door zo'n stuk van Bach, die we toch wel als onze God mogen beschouwen, dat gebeurt door vrijwel iedereen, is een onderzoeksproject wat zo fascinerend voor mij is geweest dat ik daarna besloten heb, samen met al die partners en al die mensen, me zo in te spannen voor de muziek, om dat te laten verder leven en te zorgen dat al die dingen die hier gebeurd zijn, en waarvan u vandaag een aantal prachtige voorbeelden heeft gehoord, dat dat verder gedragen kan worden en dat we alsmaar mogen bijdragen aan een nog interessantere uitvoerings- en componeerpraktijk. Het is een feest om hier te mogen zijn, een eer voor mij om voor u te hebben mogen spreken. En ik wens ons nog een mooi stukje muziek toe, onder leiding van onze briljante gastheer. En dan gaan we daarna lekker aan de drank en aan het eten.
Dankjewel. Dankjewel. Het waren opvallend korte 45 minuten. Dames en heren, a last word from music. Bobby Mitchell is going to perform for you. Bobby, where are you? Yeah. And he is a real romantic pianist. Aren't you?
Yes, sir. Yes, yes, that's right.
What does it mean?
It means that I love to play the piano in public, but especially at home. And I like to touch the core of the repertoire, which is the 19th century when the piano was developing faster than the automobile, when romantic ideals were in charge. And I especially like to improvise. So I'd like to serenade you and inspire your hunger with a very unusual performance of Schumann's famous Arabesque.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I think starting with Delia, putting away the score, ending with your beautiful improvisation on Schumann, the circle is closed again. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Thank you. Because we're going to come to an end with this meeting, so many beautiful things have been said and done. Provoking, inspiring, important. Let me quote just one more thing that's going to, you will find it in the magazine that will be handed out at the end by Luc Vaas. Spelen is niet genoeg, je moet ook denken. Playing alone is not enough, you have to think. And afterwards you have to drink. I wish you a good night. Thank you very much and enjoy.